Hello. Okay, this video is going to concentrate on some government land use questions and property taxes that I want you to hopefully get correct and pick up some easy questions on the state exam. So let me share my screen here, and let's start with subdivided land law. So this is a little confusing for people because they confuse MAP Act with subdivided land law. So first, let's just talk about buying land, cutting it in half. You're a subdivider. Now land has what's known as a parcel number or a lot number. So when you take it, you cut it in half, you're now going to have to probably get another parcel number, right? So that the county can tax you on your property tax. So I want you to think that if you take land, you cut it in half, you're a subdivider, okay? If you take land, you cut it into two, the first law kicks in, which is the Subdivision MAP Act. And that's the county kind of having some oversight over what you're doing because they need to issue you the parcel number and so forth. So you take land, you cut it in half, the first law kicks in, Subdivision MAP Act at 2 or more lots or units. You take that land, you cut it into 5, right? You have 5 or more lots or units in addition to the MAP Act. Now you have to deal with a separate law called the Subdivided Lands Law. That's 5 or more. So MAP Act, 2 or more, Subdivided Lands Law, 5 or more. Now, I said the county kind of deals and oversees with the Subdivision MAP Act. So who oversees this Subdivided Lands Law? Well, that's actually the Department of Real Estate, because the Subdivided Lands Law, when you're selling these 5 or more lots, because you're probably doing a subdivision, well, the Department of Real Estate wants to make sure that the public's protected. So no subdivision can be offered for sale in California until the Department of Real Estate Commission has issued a subdivision public report or final public report. A public report includes important information disclosures concerning the subdivision offering. So basically, they want to make sure that you're not ripping off the public, that if you said they're getting an acre, they're getting an acre. If you said the community is going to have certain features, it's going to have certain features, that you have enough insurance and bonds and funding to finish the project. So subdivided lands law, 5 or more lots or units, you have to deal with that law. MAP Act, you got to deal anytime there's 2 or more lots. So see it as not either or, but that at 2 or more, right? MAP Act. And then you get to 5 or more. In addition, you got to deal with this subdivided land law. Now, what's a general plan? Well, we might define a general plan as a community's vision for itself, a city's vision for how it wants to develop. Now, how will it enforce that vision? If it says, I want to be the greenest city in California, well, they're probably going to set up zoning, meaning government restrictions to what you can do with your land to help manage that vision, that general plan. So you want to put a sriracha factory in the middle of your neighborhood, and they say, sorry, you're not zoned for that. Or you want to have horses in an area that's not zoned for that. So zoning helps a city or a county really guide its general plan. Now, maybe you feel that zoning is overly burdensome to you, right? You might be able to get a variance, a special exception to zoning, a special exception to zoning. Eminent domain, the power of government to take your property. Now, they must use it for public use, and they must pay you fair market value. And I want you to add something to this condemnation. So what kind of goes with eminent domain is they condemn your property so that you can't live there, no one else can use it. So the only buyer is the government. So, but they still have to pay you for it, and they can't use it because the mayor wants a swimming pool. It's got to be used for public use, fair market value. But I want you to link condemnation to this process of eminent domain. Police power. Well, whenever the government can tell you what to do with your own stuff, that's an example of police power, right? The ultimate police power, they can incarcerate you, right? For the health, safety, general welfare, and moral of the community. And while this is not a specific state exam question, I just want to make sure we're on the same page. When we say a document was recorded, we don't mean in your Hello Kitty journal, right? We mean at the county recorder's office. It's the act of putting a document into official county records. Many things are recorded, usually real estate related, like deeds, grant deeds, trust deeds, but DBAs, doing business as fictitious name statements, are recorded. Marriage licenses are recorded. So there's a lot of things that are recorded at the county recorder's office. Talking about government, we have to talk about property taxes. So I want you to know this Latin term, ad valorem, according to value. Another Latin term that's probably good for you to know, caveat emptor, buyer beware. But when it comes to property taxes, I want you to know this Latin term, ad valorem, according to value. How much are property taxes? 1% of your assessed value. Now, why do you pay property taxes? Because the county actually puts a lien on your property every January 1st, a specific lien on your property every January 1st. Well, what if you don't pay? Well, they're not going to take your house right away. There's a 5-year redemption period. However, penalties will accrue. So when do you pay property taxes? Well, the fiscal year for property taxes are actually from June 30th through July 1st of the following year. So it's a fiscal year as opposed to a calendar. So when are property taxes due? They're due November 1st and February 1st. So let's say you bought a house for $500,000, 1% are property taxes. So you owe $5,000. They'll divide that in half, and you'll pay $2,500 on November 1st, and you'll pay $2,500 on February 1st. Now, a lot of people are like, oh, I thought they were due like December 10th, or no, it's not that they're due December 10th, it's that they won't penalize you a late fee if they receive it before December 10th and before April 10th. So you need to make sure you know these dates. When is the first installment of property taxes due? November 1. How about the second installment, February 1? When is the first installment considered late if received after December 10th? When is the second installment considered late if received after April 10th? How much are property taxes? 1% of what? The assessed value. Property taxes are reassessed when sold. So when can they jack up your taxes? Because they base property taxes on what you paid for the home. That's called your base value. Now, every year they can take them up, but very little, like 2% of the assessed value originally. That's why if you bought your home 20 years ago, you pay a lot less property taxes than the guy who just bought the home next door for 3 times what you paid, right? So when are property taxes reassessed? When sold. When you now sell your home, that person's going to have to pay property taxes based on what they just purchased it for. Now, why can't property taxes get jacked up every year because the county wants money? Well, thanks to a great law of the land that got passed years ago called Proposition 13. Prop 13 limits property tax increases from your base value. So once you buy it, Prop 13 says, hey, you can't jack up these person's property taxes every year beyond 2% of whatever that original base value is. So that keeps property taxes rather low. Okay, let's look at a few questions. Number 1, an individual can get title to real property in all the following ways. Now, we didn't really cover this in our little segment now, but let's talk about these because these are kind of important. Intestate succession. Well, that's when you die without a will, not without heirs. You just didn't tell anybody where you want your stuff to go. So your stuff will go to your heirs, right? Your closest heirs. So you don't have a will, it'll go to your closest heirs. Intestate succession. The process of it going to your closest heirs is succession. Intestate is you died without a will. However, this question is saying an individual can get title to real property in all the following ways, except So they can get it through intestate succession. Your rich uncle died, you're the only relative. Okay, you can get it. Grant deed. Well, that one for sure, right? Because you can grant me all the rights and interest in the thing owned to real property in this document called grant deed, and that's used all the time. We're going to skip escheat for a second. Will. Opposite of intestate succession, here you're writing who you want to get your stuff. It may not be your heirs, right? It may be a charity. So you could definitely, an individual could get title to real property through will. So what's escheat? It's not what you did when you went to Las Vegas. It's a very specific term for government. When you die without heirs, right? No one to survive you. After 5 years, we say the property will escheat to the state of California. So you as an individual can't get title to escheat, only the state of California can. So the correct answer here would be Charlie, escheat. Number 2, the power of government to take private property. Oh, that was eminent domain. Eminent domain. Remember that. A city's vision of land use, housing, open space. Oh, that sounds like their general plan for how they want the city to come out. A city's vision of land use, housing, and open space is referred to as their general plan. That's why you sometimes also hear like, oh, this is a master planned community. I don't think they use that term anymore, but it's kind of the same thing, general plan. Now, an example of the state's right to regulate an individual's private property through police power. So you want to have llamas in your front yard. You're not zoned for that kind of animal in your front yard. That's zoning. When the government can tell you what to do with your property, zoning. Property taxes, not when they're due, but when do they become a lien on your real property? Every January 1. Every January 1. What is the property tax rate? 1%. Now, I do want to add something to this because a lot of people tell me, no, my taxes are higher. No, in California, your property taxes are 1% of your assessed value. However, depending on whatever county you live, there's 59 counties in California, they may add other things to the bill. In fact, if you look at your property tax bill, there's a section called voted indebtedness. And that's when you vote for things, I don't know, maybe you vote for special things specific to that county. Well, where do they get the money? Well, they're going to divide the cost by all the pieces of real estate that have parcel numbers, assessor parcel number, and then you have a portion of that. So in addition to the 1% of the assessed value, there might be these additional fees, right? So, but the property tax rate is 1%. When do you get to pay property taxes? Alpha, every November 1 and February 1, right? They take that bill, they cut it in half, and you pay the first installment November 1st, the second installment February 1st. Number 8, what proposition limits big increases in your property taxes and sets your purchase price as your base value? What prop limits your property taxes getting jacked up every year? Prop 13. Very important proposition in California. Some states don't have this. Some states, they can keep going up as the population grows. But so far in California, we still have Prop 13. All the following are restrictions or burdens on property except. So you're looking for the one that's a positive. So let's take a look. Is zoning the fact that I can't have llamas in my front yard? No, that's a burden. So it wouldn't be that one. A judgment. I lost a lawsuit and now the person put a judgment lien on everything I own. Well, that might burden my real estate. Homestead. Let's skip that for a second. Mechanics lien. I didn't pay the flooring contractor and he attached a mechanics lien to my home. Well, that's going to burden my house. But what's homestead? Homestead's kind of a little bit on the focus that, your home is very important and your rights to keep your home should be high, right? So homestead is technically protection from unsecured creditors forcing you to sell your home to pay some judgment that they've won. Doesn't mean they can't, it just makes it harder for them to do so. Now, different states have harder homestead protections, meaning more protection for the homeowner. California doesn't have that great of protection. Florida is much stronger. However, at the very least, it's a positive. Anything that makes it harder for unsecured creditors forcing you to sell your home to pay any judgments they won against you. Well, that's a positive. So number 9, not a burden or restriction, homestead. Number 10, an option for a seller of an income property, right? They have tenants, it's earning money, it's not where they live, it's not their primary residence, it's an income property. They want to defer taxes. Well, there's something called a 1031 tax deferred exchange. In fact, it's named 1031 because that's the section of the IRS tax code that talks about it. That says, hey, if you have this rental building or strip center or property that's producing income and you sell it, as long as you roll all the proceeds into another property within certain time limits, you don't have to pay any taxes to the federal government, possibly to the state, but not to the federal government, until you sell that property that you called an uplight property, until you sell that property that you rolled all the proceeds into, which could be never, right? So an option for a seller of an income property to defer taxes is alpha a 1031 tax deferred exchange. Here we go. Subdivided land law. You should think, well, subdivided land law, that was the DRE, final public report, 5 or more, correct. That applies to developments, lots, units, or apartment to condo conversions of 5 or more. Now a separate law, the Subdivision Map Act, that kicks in when? 2 or more, 2 or more. Okay, I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you on the next one.